Hello and welcome to Vale This Week from Bro Radio. On tonight's programme, with an increase in council tax of 6.5% passed on Monday, we'll hear from Council Leader Lis Burnett about its budget for the 26-27 year and ring-fenced funding for youth provision and rural bus services. We'll get an update on plans to create a veterans wellbeing garden at the rear of the Health Hub on High Street in Barry, including how a local company is offering its time and materials at a reduced cost to help deliver the project. Also, do you remember Rick on the Roof, a short film sharing the story of the local community, and Rick is being shown this weekend as part of the Barry Arts Festival. We'll hear from its director, Atkin-Mayne, on the show tonight. And looking ahead to next week, we'll hear the latest from Penarth Operatic and Dramatic Society as work's underway for their latest production at the Paget Rooms in Penarth. All that, plus a roundup of the week's local sport with Jamie, and some dates for your diary with Gareth Richards. But first, earlier this week, the Vale This Council passed a 6.5% increase to council tax in the county for the 26-27 financial year. The vote on Monday evening was approved with 49%, 26 votes, 42% against, 22 votes, and 9% abstaining. The increase is made up of a 5.5% base increase and an additional 1%, which is ring-fenced for youth provision and rural bus services. Opposition councillors have criticised the increase as one of the highest in Wales and for being significantly above inflation, with leader of the Vale Conservative Group, Councillor George Carroll, stating he could not support the inflation-busting council tax rise proposed, whilst Plaid Group leader Dr Ian Johnson said the budget did not strike the right note to him in the current circumstances. Now, Vale This Council has released details of its spending plans for the year ahead, which include investment in schools, older people's accommodation, highways and more. Vale Council Leader Lis Burnett. Vale Council Leader, Councillor Lis Burnett, joins us now. Let's start first by talking about council tax and the increase that's been announced and passed on Monday. It's an increase of 6.5%, which is been said to be quite a high figure by opposition parties. Some have referred to it as inflation busting. So tell us about some of the decision to increase council tax and the thought process gone into increase of 6.5%.
Well, it's never easy, is it? It's not something that you take that decision lightly. But I think what I would say is not many people know that there are only 5 councils in Wales that have got lower council tax than us. People at the top have got somewhere in the region £250, £300 a year more than the Vale, and those at the bottom are around, I think at the moment, about £200 less. So we are 17th in Wales in terms of council tax. So if you lived in the top charging council in Wales, their increase has been 5%, but actually 5% of that top level is more than ours. So we don't start with a target figure. We actually start with discussing what we need to deliver. And as everyone knows, the biggest part of our budget is social care and education. That takes up over 70% of our budget. And everything else has to be squeezed into the last part. And when you look at the figures over the previous years, social care and education have gone up markedly. But actually, if you look at environment, which is our street scene, it's litter, it's waste, it's street cleansing, it's all sorts of things like that. That's flatlined. And that's the thing that people actually notice. So that's why this year we're putting nearly we're putting £750,000 into street scene. We've got special teams, etc., that are now going to be focusing on our towns. And hopefully people will see a difference in that. So those are the sorts of things that, big increases again in education, increases again in social care, which is what people say we should be doing. And then some other stuff as well that's in there. The 1% is very different. The 1%, which in effect for an average house is about 31p a week. That was at the end of a long discussion in terms of what people have told us, and 2 things that people had talked to us about, and also some data that came out recently. One was that people in west of Barry, in effect, rural Vale, their public transport is really, really poor, to such an extent that they are classified as deprived in terms of their connections, in terms of getting to services like going shopping, in terms of getting to medical facilities. A GP appointment can take you half a day in some areas of the rural Vale to get to, and we didn't feel that was fair. And the other thing was we were being told that our young people really are facing some tremendous challenges at the moment, and that they needed more support. And so we went out and we looked at what could be done with that. And that 31p on an average council tax would give us just over 500,000 to support our youth services, and mainly in terms of prevention and inclusion. So those young people are really, really facing challenges, that they would be supported. And when we went out and had a chat to young people in our secondary schools, and the conversations were very involved. They asked lots of probing questions and things, but they also told us what life is really like for them. And they commented on the rural buses as well, that they said that they can't go out at night because you can't stand on a bus stop waiting an hour for a bus if you've just missed the last one on your own in the dark. It's not safe for them. They also told us that unless their parents are available, they don't really have a social life, so they're driven to being online, which is what we don't want. So a lot of feedback made us think we want to do some ring-fenced spending on those two areas. If it doesn't get spent on that, then it will wait in the budget for next year. But it's specifically to support rural buses, to help people in the rural Vale get out and about, and to support our young people. And as I said, 31p on an average council tax. And it's worth knowing that even in our highest level of council tax, for the total increase, we're looking at about a cup of Costa coffee, really.
And you mentioned there with that 1% specifically, the engagement there with people in the rural communities and young people. When it comes to increases like this, we see a lot of people sharing frustrations on social media, particularly when they're seeing their costs in other areas rise as well. What do you think needs to be done more to get those people who share their frustration on social media when a budget comes out, but maybe don't engage with that consultation period that happens?
I can understand. I can understand people being frustrated. Part of the reason I got into politics was, there comes a point where you think, oh, I'm just fed up of shouting at the television, when you actually see things on the TV. I always like it when people get in touch anyway. We've got all these consultations, but if you don't want to engage in those, just drop me a line, just send me a message, just, any of your local councillors. We all want to talk to residents. We all want to hear what they've got to say. And whether that's good or bad, feedback is essential to helping us to improve our services.
And more widely, you've talked about some of the key priorities in this budget and some of the ways that the council puts together budgets for years. So tell us about some of the key areas you're going to be focusing on over the next 12 months to deliver on some of those areas.
Well, our budget, this is all this sort of public sector gobbledygook, really, isn't it? And it's probably another reason why people don't engage, is we can talk about what's called the revenue budget. That's the budget that makes things happen. So in that sort of thing, people are going to see, hopefully, a vast difference in how their streets look, in how clean they are, whether or not weeds have been dealt with, and all that sort of thing. We want people to see that, because I know that that's what people really care about. But then the other side of it is what we call capital funding, and that's the funding that we've got in terms of building stuff and developments. And I mean, I was looking back the other day about what we've done since I came into the council, which was 2012, and you actually look and you see the developments on the island, the goods sheds and the pump house and all the houses that we've been building and various other things. I mean, I think so far it's 18 schools, and we've got 4 more on sort of on the go. Well, 3 more on the go this week. We hope to be announcing plans for Home View, and I know that is a facility that is crucial to people in those areas. I think we've got quite an exciting plan on that we'll be talking about on Thursday at Cabinet. And so those things will continue. I think you've just covered the fact that they've broken the ground and the groundworks are starting to work in St Richard Gwyn. That's the last Barry secondary school, in fact the last secondary school right across the Vale that we've renewed. So we will not stop in developing those things. And alongside that, I know people have said to us, well, what are you doing with Wilco? There's a consultation on that. There are ideas. We've got our arts team involved. We've got our youth team involved. But we are very definitely looking at things like a market and that sort of stuff in the centre of Barry. And we should be publishing plans on that soon as well.
And we obviously talked about how increases in costs more generally are impacting people on the ground. Lots of people sharing their frustration. How much you hope that people with this budget and moving forward, whilst they're going to see an increase in council tax, will actually see a difference from these changes?
I hope so. I mean, that is the main aim of it, to help people to see a real difference moving forward. And if people don't, I mean, you just look around the lanes behind Holton Road, for example. They're pristine now. They've made quite a difference in the last couple of months. King Square's all been jet washed, and we'll be working our way through the town centre as well. There's trees being planted in various places. There will be changes. We can't magic everything overnight, but we do know what makes a difference to people. And as important as social care and education are, we know that when you're walking around your own town day to day, that how it looks and feels really matters to people. And this year is the first year in over a decade that, rather than the conversation being what's the least worst cut that we can make, this year we're actually investing in things, and that's made a huge difference.
And we're talking now a little bit of a period ahead of an upcoming election in the Senedd. Looking back to 2024, there's lots of talks about how a Labour government in London and Wales and in the Vale of Glamorgan make a real difference to people's living standards and improvements to local services. Now coming 2 years after that, do you feel like in practice that's really making a difference in the Vale of Glamorgan?
It has, actually. I mean, that's why we can invest. And that's why we are seeing, I mean, at the moment, you've got the removal of the two-child cap, which comes in next month. Even that, I know, that's a sizable number of people in the Vale of Glamorgan that's currently affected. But if you look at what the other thing that the council's done, we are a real living wage employer. So people are getting a decent salary even at some of the lower levels in the council. But not only the council, the people that the council works with. So if we have people providing services, we expect them to be a real living wage employer as well. So it goes through a whole range, and I'd love the opportunity to maybe come back and deal with a section of the council at a time, and go into it in a bit more depth, because there is a lot that's happening, and a lot of it is happening because we can have those conversations both at Welsh level but also at UK level. I've just been earlier today talking at a UK level in terms of community cohesion and how we can help our communities to be friendlier, more connected, etc. And I've been talking to them about the examples of the brilliant work that's happened in Barry in terms of community cohesion. We can have those conversations, and actually people can learn from us.
That was Vale of Glamorgan Council Leader Lis Burnett. Now let's take a look at some of the top news stories from the past week here in the Vale with Kate McMahon.
Work has begun to redevelop St Richard Gwyn Catholic High School in Barry. The school is the last of Barry's 4 comprehensive schools to undergo such an upgrade by the Vale of Glamorgan Council. St Richard Gwyn is set to undergo major extensive improvements, which will see the old buildings replaced with fresh functional spaces, catering for over 1,100 pupils. Work on the new school buildings is expected to be completed by the end of 2027, with the old one being completely demolished by December 2028. A series of commemorative flights will take place across the UK, including in St Athan, to mark 90 years since the first flight of the Supermarine Spitfire. Working with Spitfires.com, the Royal Air Force is supporting a nationwide tour by a two-seat Spitfire painted to represent the original prototype K5054. Members of the public will have the opportunity to bid for a seat in the aircraft as it travels between airfields across the UK. The Spitfire will fly into St Athan on the 14th of April, departing on the 15th. The first 80-kilometre stretch of the National Forest for Wales has been launched, stretching from Porthcurry Country Park to Pont Walby Viaduct near Glynneath. The Welsh Government has launched the first part of the scheme, which will see people be able to visit 12 national forest sites and 24 woodlands in total. The trail is just under a 24-hour walk when completed, but has been split into manageable sections for those wanting to experience it more gently. Following existing rights-of-way networks, making it suitable for walkers, wheelchair users, cyclists and horse riders. Part of the Amelia Trust Farm site off the 5-mile lane will form part of the trail, with the charity saying they are pleased to be part of the National Forest for Wales. Llandswydd Major has been chosen as one of just 3 Welsh towns to take part in the one-week Town Boost. The hands-on programme, running from the 17th to the 21st of March, aims to turn local ideas into real action in 1 week. Described as a hands-on high-energy week, the organisers are inviting businesses, residents or community champions to come together and breathe new life into the town centre. An info night is being held on Tuesday the 17th of March at Llandonian Hall, where businesses and residents can find out more and learn how to get involved. And congratulations are in order for Griffin Books in Penarth, as it's been named the best bookshop in Wales. Based on Windsor Road in the seaside town, Griffin Books will now go on to compete against 8 other shops across the UK to be crowned the overall independent bookshop of the year at the British Book Awards in May. Whittled down from 9 finalists across Wales announced last month, the awards celebrate bookshops that continue to draw book lovers to towns and cities across the United Kingdom and Ireland.
You're listening to The Vale This Week on Bro Radio. Now, you may remember last year us talking on this show about a fundraising walk by the Health Hwb in Barry. It was to raise funds to create a veterans wellbeing garden. Well, now Rosa has the latest.
In November last year, Jake and Helen, founders of the Health Hwb in Barry, took on a 172-mile fundraising walk to create a veterans garden on High Street in Barry. Now, months later, work has begun to transform an unused space into a safe space for veterans, expanding the work of their monthly veterans events. Jake is the founder of Health Hwb and told us a bit about its work.
Everything we're doing for the community, it's all to support mental health, well-being and self-care. But my passion is, alongside that, is to support our veterans. And when I say that, it's to give them a safe space where they can come, switch off, take them out of the environment that they're used to, bring them and introduce them to something else that can help them with their journey. Even if it's just giving them 5 minutes to just reset and rest the mind. But yeah, we've set up the Health Hwb now, and along with that, we do the Veterans Wellbeing Day, which is every month. And when I did set up the Veterans Wellbeing Day, I did understand that they needed a space that was going to be just for them. So the idea came to create the Safe Space Garden. As you know, you supported the journey last year where we did the walk from HMS Raleigh to Barry. And on doing that, it made me realise that we can do a lot more. The community come together, everyone was amazing. And here we are now, we're here now actually starting the garden, which is amazing.
In November, Jake and his business partner took on a 172-mile fundraising walk from HMS Raleigh to Barry, with the aim of raising funds for a veterans garden space, raising over £6,000 for the project. But now a local company has stepped forward to help and deliver the work, bringing in their contacts to reduce labour and material costs.
We did the walk for, obviously, to raise the funds. Amazing. Like I said, everyone come together. We raised the money for that garden, and Helen, who I walked with, she knew Steve, who's a builder. We invited him down. He came down to have a look at the garden, and literally within a couple of days, he came back and blew me away and said he's gone away. It obviously made him think what he wants to do for the veterans, and he's come and told us that he's not only going to do the work for us, but he's going to do it near on next to nothing. And he's gone away as well, and he spoke to all his suppliers, his friends in the industry, and they've all come together and they've offered the materials next to nothing. So yeah, I'm blown away with this. And yeah, as you can see now, the guys are cracking on and they're not messing about. This garden's going to be done soon. But for me, right, it just goes to show what we are doing for the veterans. It means something more than just a garden, more than just a safe space. It's creating recognition, awareness for the veterans, and I hope this breeds out. I hope it goes further than the Vale, because that's what it's about. It's about obviously us showing the recognition and support to the veterans, which they rightly deserve.
Stephen runs S&S Home Improvements, who have stepped forward to assist Jake in completing the project and have been running for around 8 years.
A Cardiff-based firm, family-run business. Myself, Stephen and son, S&S, Stephen and son, which is Reese, my son. Yeah, we've been running for about 8 years as this company. Well, it's a big thing really to my heart for, you know, to deal with veterans, etc. I met Jake through a lady called Helen George, and Helen was a good friend of mine through times of COVID. We were doing her roof, funny enough, and she had a tragedy in her family, so we done her roof. And then we done, I think it was her mother's as well. So we done hers and mother's. Basically, COVID time, we were struggling. Helen was good to us. We sort of met through Helen herself. Helen mentioned she was doing, well, I did see on Facebook, so I'm friends with her. Helen was doing like a walk from, well, quite far from whatever, with Cardiff with a guy called Jake. So I watched the journey. Seen how far it was going, and just thought what a lovely thing to do. Helen's introduced me to Jake up here in Barry with a Health Hub. I've come up basically to have a look to see if we could help in any way, as I've seen what Jake's doing, and I think it's such a great thing, and Helen, and I thought I'd try and get involved and try and help out. I got a good team. I got Justin, Reese, and myself, and I got a good friend, Mikey King from King's Roofing, who's helping us out. I've gone away basically to speak to a few of my people that I use regularly, Russell and Jamie from Capital UPVC, and Craig as well from Burton Roofing, from Cardiff. So we've basically, amongst us all, rallied round, got all the materials, spoke to Jake, come back up. I didn't want to say nothing until we was sort of finalised, but spoke to Jake then, back and forth, and said, listen, I want to help you. I want to try and get involved. I want to try and give a little something back, especially when I knew it was for veterans, people with mental health. You know, I'm a big believer in helping people who deserve help. So then we decided then between the companies, the manufacturers, etc., that we'll try and get all the materials, if not most of the materials, get it provided for free of charge. And then bring myself, my team, brought in with Mikey, with Kings, and my son and Justin, Reese and Justin, to try and get up here and do it all for free and try and give a little something back and turn it into a safe space for Jake to provide, and Helen to provide, you know, a safe room really for the veterans, etc., and people with mental health. It's a big thing I believe in, and it's been a lovely opportunity to sort of give a little something back. I've always wanted to sort of do a DIY SOS sort of build. I've always said to my son, teaches him, you know, to look after people who need it. And this has just popped up, and things align for a reason in life.
Whilst work to create the garden is ongoing, Health Hub continues to run its monthly Veterans Days.
We put on a day where if you're a veteran, you don't have to be from the Vale of Glamorgan, but you can be in the area. You contact the Health Hub, and we will offer the services at the Health Hub totally free of charge. And when I say services, at the moment they have the options to use the contrast therapy, which is the saunas and ice baths. They have an option to use the pressotherapy, which we've just introduced to the Health Hub, which is lymphatic drainage. And also as well, it's a safe space to come and get the support. So we have the Armed Forces Liaison Officer here with us, Abby. She's here every month without fail. We have Roger from About Turn Wales. And only, look, we've been doing this now 4 months, okay? Next month is the 5th month, but on the last one, I did notice real impact happening, okay? I noticed that what we were doing is not just creating the safe space, I'm actually witnessing now veterans getting the support if needed. But also as well, on the flip side of that, I'm seeing veterans laughing, I'm seeing veterans coming together, I'm seeing veterans switching off, and that is the aim, that is the goal.
Right now, let's move on to sport, and with all the latest from around the Vale of Glamorgan, here's Jamie Pritchard.
Let's start with rugby, where preparations continue ahead of Saturday, where we welcome Italy to the Principality Stadium for our final Six Nations clash of 2026. It's off the back of Steve Tandy's men suffering their 15th straight loss in the tournament, despite a spirited showing against Ireland. None of our scorers from the last Six Nations win against Italy in 2023 will be on the field for the game, which kicks off at 4:40 on Saturday. For Barry RFC's youth side, they overcame a slow start to beat Bath 27-25 on the weekend. For Dinas Paris, they ran in 21 unanswered points in the second half to clinch a vital victory in what was a must-win match at the bottom of the table. The score ended Gilfachgor 31, Dinas Paris RFC 52. Meanwhile, Old Penarthians travelled to Roath Park playing fields for a morning kick-off against Cardiff Saracens, who were looking for a continued improvement in their own fortunes. And for many spectators who made the trip into Cardiff, they were rewarded with a positive performance and a result against fellow WRU Division 5 East Central strugglers with a victory 25-10. Moving to football, Lewis Kumas hopes his form with Hull City will improve his hopes of being involved in Wales's upcoming World Cup playoff campaign. The 19-year-old netted his third goal since joining the Tigers on loan from Liverpool in January to help his side claim a 2-1 win at Wrexham last night. Meanwhile, Wrexham striker Kiefer Moore is a big doubt for the campaign. He came off the bench in the Red Dragons' 4-2 FA Cup fifth-round loss to Chelsea on Saturday. The 33-year-old, who is the club's top scorer this season with 13 goals, was omitted from the squad for his side's 2-1 defeat by Hull City in the Championship last night after it was confirmed he had suffered a tendon split. It's been a quiet week at Jenner Park, with their next game on Saturday as they face Colwyn Bay with a kick-off at 2:30. Barry currently sit fourth in the conference table, level with Carnarvon Town and a point behind Penarth. Off the field, they've announced the return of former captain Kane McLagan as he takes on the role of head of academy. After spending 8 years at Jenner Park, the role will see him lead the club's youth development programme and play pathways from academy through to senior football. For Lantwick Major in the Cymru South, they face Cwmbran Celtic with a 3-1 win, seeing them remain 7th in the league table. Lantwick next welcome Ammanford to the UWR Stadium this Saturday. And as always, there's lots more sports with Mike on Monday night from 7 here on Bro Radio, or anytime on our website at broradio.fm.
You're listening to The Vale this week on Bro Radio. The Barry Arts Festival continues this weekend with a small number of tickets available for a screening of a short film called Rick on the Roof. It follows the story of a Barry man who camped on his roof for 2 years to prevent being evicted and the support from the local community around him. Isaac Atkin-Mayne is the director of the documentary and joined me earlier in the week, and he began by telling me how he got into film and documentary making.
So it's something I've always wanted to do, get into filmmaking. And when I first started, I wasn't really sure whether it would be more into fiction or in documentary. And I got started in sort of making videos in general with interviewing real people. I've worked in a variety of different places, like in prisons, doing quite a few bits for government. And it was really there that I realized that I loved working with real people and telling true stories. And so I then went down the documentary route from there. And then specifically with this story, with my first documentary, Rick on the Roof, I'd always wanted to tell a story from within Barry, from my home. And it just had to be this story, really, because Rick's story is one that I grew up with. Everyone in Barry did, I suppose, if you grew up around the 2000s. And it just sparked from my very first meeting with him that I just knew I needed to tell a story.
And it's a great story that many people will kind of know about, but for maybe people who don't know the story, tell us a little about the background to Rick on the Roof.
Yeah, so it all happened in the middle of the 2000s. So Rick was evicted from his home that he had lived in with his mother, and she passed away. And shortly after, he was facing numerous different eviction notices. And so as a protest, he decided to move onto his roof and live there for many years. And what happened then was the whole community on the street, it was a bunch of neighbours whose names he barely knew. they all flocked together to keep him alive, essentially, to keep a human being on a roof for that period of time. You need to feed them, you need to make sure that they're safe during all the storms, etc. And it was really when I realized that I knew there was so much more to the story than I knew then when I was a kid. And I was just very into the idea of this sort of local legend of Rick. And up until we made the film, it really existed as more of an oral history within Barry, which I find quite interesting. So it's nice to properly preserve this. And yeah, just getting to know Rick's family through the whole process and actually putting the community back together again was just such a beautiful experience.
I guess it's a beautiful story of kind of like resilience, togetherness, but also like really great community spirit that existed around that kind of area at the time, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And lots of the people in the film specifically said that they had never been involved in anything like this before. They didn't see themselves as political. They didn't see themselves as well. I think it was common not just for Rick, but a lot of them didn't know their neighbours, and it took an act like this for them to actually literally leave their front doors and speak with one another. Like I mentioned at the start, I live in London now, and I barely know anyone in my flat building. I don't say hello to that many people anymore, and if the film has any sort of message, is to encourage people to do that, and it doesn't take a man living on his roof to do it. Just getting to know each other and listening to each other's struggles.
And being in the community now, we see stories like this from time to time. Why do you think it's something that still resonates, 20 years later as a story?
Well, so it's really the cost of living crisis, and on top of that, also a housing crisis. And so Penny, Rick's sister, specifically says in the film how she thinks times are even tougher now than they were 20 years ago, which I think most people would agree with. And so the pressures economically that were on Rick at the time have now, quadrupled. And so I feel it has so much more relevance. It has so much relevance to it still today for that reason. And also coming back to that theme of community, it's just about supporting one another and as much as we can. And when we did a lot of filming, in and around Barry and going back to the high street and in town, it's just so many of the shops are still closed, and people need spaces to actually facilitate these relationships and to facilitate community. And if you're losing those spaces, then you lose everything. So times are really tough. And so, yeah, it's really just, I think has so much relevance today in terms of trying to forge community as much as we can.
And tell us about some of the response you've had to the documentary. You've been able to play it in a couple of locations and show it to other people as well. What's the response been like, not just from local residents, from people outside of Barry who've probably never heard Rick's story before?
Yeah, it's been amazing. So we've played that. We've been lucky to play at quite a few festivals now. So we've been all around areas of England specifically. So in Folkestone on the coast to Norwich. And we've now been featured on Short of the Week. So this is it's a big YouTube channel and website that's been going for decades now. And every week it selects different short films to put on its platform. And through that, we've now had a much bigger international audience. And sort of, I think if people are able to understand the Barry accent coming from wherever they are in America, etc., then they've been really engaging with the film. So it's been amazing. I think what draws you in is just the sort of absurdism of a man living on his roof, but then you stay around for this community theme that I'm banging on about. But also it's just, I think what I've loved from the reaction is just about the film having a balance between the sort of seriousness of the story, but also with the levity of it being this, quite surreal act that Rick did. And so it's been lovely.
So you mentioned showing it all over the country, coming back to Barry this weekend coming for the Barry Arts Festival, which is going to be showing it, and then also a bit of a chance to ask you some questions about the film and how you made it.
Yeah, that's the idea. So I'm really excited for it. It'll be the first proper screening in Barry, which we've been looking forward to for a long time now. So it's on Sunday, the 15th of March. Doors open at 6:15, and it will be at Ysgol Sant Barrack. So lovely space, holds quite a few people. So we're really hoping to get as many bums and seats as possible. And there'll be a Q&A afterwards. So we'll open it up to the room. Hopefully there'll be an engaging discussion afterwards. And it's just going to be, it's really special. It's the first time that we're screening it in Barry, and obviously the whole film is all about Barry and it's all about our history. So it's going to be really
You're
special.
listening to The Vale This Week from Bro Radio. Next week, members of Penarth Operatic and Dramatic Society are back on stage with their latest production, Low Pay, Don't Pay, from the 18th to 21st of March. Earlier today, Celia spoke with two of the cast members, Phil Lovelace and Wayne Azarati, who began by giving a background on Penarth Operatic and Dramatic Society.
PODS has been in existence now for in excess of 100 years. We had our centenary celebration just over a year ago and started in doing musicals and reviews and then plays, and it's just been going from strength to strength. I've been a member since I was 17, which was too many years ago to remember.
And 5 years ago, was that, Phil?
About 5 years ago, yeah.
Probably saw you in some stuff when I was living in Penarth.
Probably did, yeah. And we have 2 plays a year, 1 large musical a year, and a pantomime towards the end of the year, which rounds everything off. We have a drama society group, we have a musical group, and we have a youth group called PODS. Which has recently been set up in the last couple of years, which is PODS Youth, and they also do a show in the summer months usually.
Right, yeah. Lovely stuff. So, before we get to what's coming up, what was the last one that you did?
The last one I did was a Lower Low, which was back.
I love a Lower Low.
It was a joy to do, an absolute joy to do. I was really lucky. I got to play Renee. And we performed it last March, and it was sensational. I had a ball doing it. It was absolutely brilliant.
Now, Allo, as for those of you who are too young to know, is sort of like, it's a French resistance thing. But again, it's very much kind of like a farce as well, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely.
And I mean, I love farce. If anyone who goes to the theatre or the cinema with me, if I find it funny, I start laughing. If you ask our Gareth Knight, because he did a play last Christmas with in Ruth and in the pantomime, and I went to the rehearsals, and he said I could tell you were there because I could hear you laugh from the back, so I quite laugh. But it's amazing, isn't it? It's very, very set up. So obviously next week now, you've got Low Pay Don't Pay, which is a comedy by Italian Nobel Prize winner Daniel Phobe. I shall say that again because Nathan already did that. So next week, your next production next week is Low Pay Don't Pay, which is a comedy by Italian Nobel Prize winner Dario Fo. Now I looked this up because it said translated by, and I was quite kind of intrigued by this. Oh, translated by, what does this mean? And of course it's an Italian play. Mm-hmm. It's from 1974. It is. Tell us why it's relevant today.
Right, you can do some talking now.
All right, no problem at all. That's fine. So Dario Fo was a really interesting theatre practitioner. He died in about 2016, as far as I'm aware, at the ripe old age of 90, and he was a exponent of improvised theatre. So he would do a lot of theatre that would be kind of like proto flash mobs. Really, he'd do like protest theatre in the streets where people would actors would argue about a social issue that'd be happening at the time. In 1973, to cut a long story short, in 1973, the cost of living in Italy at the time was so high that from week to week, like bills would be put up, all different types of bills, like your groceries and your heating and all sorts of stuff. Mortgages were put up, and at a supermarket in Milan, a group of housewives essentially decided that they would pay what they wanted to pay for the shopping, not what the price was for the shopping. And Low Pay Don't Pay is essentially a dramatization of that and a farce version of that. So it's really important to kind of point out here that as much as there is a political message, times are tough for everybody. This is a farce. It's very, very funny.
We find it funny.
We find it very funny. Go ahead.
I'm going to chip in now.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to chip in now and say, obviously, I looked it up because I'm a nosy devil and I like to know what's going on. So I looked it up and I saw the original translation from 1974. So I had I had to skim through. I read through it, and it's really funny on the page. But this is the thing with farce, isn't it? I mean, it's all about timing, and I mean, we'll talk about that in a little bit now. But I mean, some of it is so funny. I was actually thinking, if they manage to pull this off, it's going to be fantastically funny, so great. But it's a way to get people to think about things as well, isn't it? It's always like that. Like if you can make people laugh, they remember things. Yeah. So yeah, it's all about that, isn't it? So yeah, so now we're going to kind of go towards, you know, what kind of stuff goes on in a little bit. So the ladies, as far as when I read it, the ladies are kind of like the heroines, really, and
Very much so.
And then you two, the funny stuff, really. If I can put that nice.
No, absolutely, you're absolutely right. We are both we're dull as dishwater.
We are, we're the idiots.
So when you play Luigi, now he's the younger one, isn't he?
Yes,
now
you wouldn't notice it here, me
he's
sitting next to Phil, but yeah.
I'm going to be kind. I'm going to say he's quite dim, isn't he? Really?
He's not the sharpest tool in the box. He's got very strong convictions, and you know, the way that we've kind of thought about Luigi is that, you know, he's a strong unionist and really, really left wing, but also he's so stupid, and there's as a show goes on, you realize that if there's a hierarchy of cleverness, Luigi is right at the bottom.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Giovanni is much further above. But Giovanni is convinced that he knows better than anybody else, because he likes to read political pamphlets and read up about what his feelings on his party, which in this case, in the more modern version, is the Labour Party. In the original, I believe it was much more sort of the Communist Party.
Yeah, Italian Communist Party. Yeah,
he was very much in support of. But anything that the party put forward, Giovanni totally believed that was gospel. And he does. He takes on board anything that's told to him. He takes on that information, not necessarily in the right order, and then regurgitates it as if it's basically facts that he's giving out.
Yeah. I mean, again, with Giovanni, you're not older as such. But,
I don't know. I am.
You are, okay, fair enough, right? But you're the most senior.
Yeah.
Kind of character.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
But I mean, your wife. She runs rings around you, doesn't she?
Absolutely.
Absolutely runs rings around you. I mean, I was reading some of it, and he was just like, yeah. He's, I mean, your character does come across, and I haven't seen you playing it, so I'm just going from what I've seen written on the stage. But it's going to be great. But your character comes across as quite kind of pompous as well.
Oh, absolutely.
And
yes.
But again, the way your wife runs rings around you, I mean, I don't know. Is it a spoiler if I Nathan will cut it out? Nathan, cut this bit out if the boys say no, it's a spoiler. But is it a spoiler to say that some of this runs around a false pregnancy?
No, it's not a spoiler in the slightest.
Yes,
because that comes from the very beginning. Yes.
Yeah, which I thought was hilarious, and I think the audience today are going to absolutely find that so wonderful watching that, because when you read it on the page, it is really funny. And when you so when you see something like that translated to actual real people doing it on stage, and I mean, live theatre is marvellous anyway. It's always best to see. I'm always going on about here. Go to concerts, go to this, go to that, because anything live is amazing. So I'm just imagining. So you're going to be absolutely shattered by the end of this, aren't you?
It's
I mean, it builds in the way that farce always will build. It starts off as like comedy, then it becomes comedy, then it becomes high comedy, and then it becomes absolute farce. And by the end of it, we are absolutely shattered.
It is,
because it's fast paced. There's an awful lot of lines for us all.
Yes.
There's a cast of 5, and we're running it as a full length. So you know we are, but we are at full pelt, and it is hysterical. Yeah, the pregnancy bit is brilliant. It's absolutely superb, and the reasoning that she comes up with the pregnancy and the explanation she gives to the inspector who appears in it is brilliant.
Oh yeah, absolutely amazing. And then of course you've got the inspector, and I probably don't want to say anything about that either, do I? Really? I think you need to come and watch it to see what.
There's so much in it that is hilarious. It starts off, the whole thing starts off with one single lie, and then if you then tell that lie to several people, and you're trying to work out like, who am I supposed to be dealing with and whatever, it's great fun. And you know, shout out to Sally, Laura and Amanda, who are the other players in the show. Amanda plays 5 separate parts in the show, and she is stop traffic hilarious, as are Laura and Sally. They're fantastic.
And Penarth Operatic and Dramatic Society's Low Pay, Don't Pay is at the Paget Rooms in Penarth from the 18th to the 21st of March. You can find out more by searching for PODS on Ticket Source. Before we wrap up this evening, let's have a look at what's going on events-wise in and around the Vale of Glamorgan. With the latest, here's Gareth Richards.
Bruce Community Library and Activity Centre are hosting a warm space area tomorrow from 10 a.m. until midday. All are welcome to go along for a free tea or coffee and a chat. You can visit the Roos Community Library and Activity Centre Facebook page for further details. You can also donate blood tomorrow at the Memo Arts Centre in Barry, and Memo blood donors have saved over 4,000 adult lives or 8,000 babies by giving blood over the last year. For further information and to book to donate, you can visit wbs.wales/Barry Arts Memo. On Friday, the Memo Arts Centre with Beacons Cymru hosts a night of bold Welsh language music. Dad Leoli, Taran and Penbleth are three exciting bands with very different sounds, and all are impossible to ignore. The event runs from 7:30 to 9:30 p.m, and for further details and ticket prices visit memoartscentre.co.uk. On Saturday you can support Tonka's Trek, which is raising funds for the Velindre Cancer Charity. Commencing at 11 a.m, Philip Thomas, who recently fought a battle with pancreatic cancer, is walking with approximately 300 other people from Velindre to Sardis Road in Pontypridd, and all funds raised will go directly to Velindre. For further details visit tonkastrek.com. Wales' flagship literary festival, Folding Rock, marks its first birthday next Wednesday the 18th of March with the launch of issue 4, Telling Tales. The event is to be held at Penarth Pier Pavilion from 7:30 p.m. to 9 p.m. for an evening of stunning literature from some of Wales' most talented writers. You can book tickets and find out more at griffinbooksevents.co.uk.
And that was the Vale This Week from Bro Radio. If you've got a story that you want us to share, we'd love to hear from you. Email your news stories to news@broradio.fm or find Bro Radio on your social media. Thanks for listening, and you can join us next Wednesday at 7 on Bro Radio or find us wherever you get your podcasts.